The Leafs have made a trade. The Russian Bear is back, but are the Leafs finished? We'll break down the deal and discuss just that on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centered podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Well, Dave, today's podcast took a bit of a different turn than we anticipated. We were going to come on and, talk about how the Maple Leafs finally got a regulation win over the Arizona Coyotes. Matthew Knies broke the streak, broke the curse, the cursed child, Matthew Knies, that is, reversed the trend. And then after the game, a tweet circulated that Ilya Lyubushkin had been scratched from the Anaheim Ducks game for trade-related reasons. Lo and behold, it was the Toronto Maple Leafs that were striking a deal to acquire his services, and the deal has now been finalized. So the trade is as such, ladies and gentlemen. The Toronto Maple Leafs have acquired Ilya Lyubushkin at 75% retained. So the Anaheim Ducks retained 50% of the cap hit of 2.75, and the Carolina Hurricanes brokered the deal to retain the other 25%. The Hurricanes getting a 2024 sixth-round pick for doing so, and the Anaheim Ducks getting the Leafs 2025 third-round pick for Ilya Lyubushkin. So when all said and done, Lyubushkin at about a cap hit of $687,000 for a third in 2025 and a sixth round pick. Dave, what do you make of this move for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
It seemed inevitable. Like, we were bringing up trade targets on the last show, and
he was my number one target, Ilya Lyubushkin.
Yeah, he was my number two.
Once Chris Tanev came off the board, it was, okay, who's the closest to Chris Tanev? And Ilya Lyubushkin was that guy. Like, he's the dude who checks a lot of the same boxes. Like, he's not as good as Chris Tanev. I will say that. I think Tanev's a formidable, definite top four guy who you can trust 20 minutes a night, who you can trust on a top pairing. Lyubushkin remains to be seen. But we've seen this before, right? Like, he came in and played alongside Morgan Rielly, before at points a couple of years ago when he was brought in from the deadline. But he's exactly the kind of player that the Leafs are kind of looking for, right? He's a big body, 6'2", 200 pounds, right hand shot, which is exactly what they've been looking for. And he's a guy who's got some size. He's physical. He's mean. He hits. He blocks shots. He'll kill penalties. It really is the type of player that they were looking to get. So mission accomplished when it comes to that.
Yeah, it is, right? Like, we're not going to be sitting here and saying that they got their savior, right?
No.
But look, Giordano just went down. It does not look good. Timothy Liljegren is down. We're not sure exactly how long he's going to be out or what the actual issue is. There's no right shot D in this organization right now.
Yeah.
It's like Sheldon Keefe just said post game, they were considering playing Mitch Marner on defense tonight.
Yes.
So I know people.
They did. That's the thing. They had to. Once Giordano went out, that was it. Mitch Marner ended up de facto becoming like the team's right-handed defenseman, and you saw him out there with TJ Brody quite often together. So that just goes to show how desperate this team was. And I don't know if you even heard the pregame comments from Sheldon Keefe after the morning skate, but he basically was pleading that this team needs a right shot so that they were in a jam. He used that term, that they were in a jam with Liljegren out, and the fact that they had to once again use 6 left shot defensemen in the lineup. It's not ideal. It really is not ideal. So won't have to do it again because Ilya Lyubushkin, the Russian Bear, will be on his way here, and hopefully he's ready to go and in the lineup for the game this weekend. But Ilya Lyubushkin is an interesting player, Dave. Why don't we go through some of his, explain to those who maybe forget what Lyubushkin's all about, or perhaps you're a new fan to the team and you didn't get to watch him play a couple of years ago. But essentially, he's a 29-year-old right shot defenseman, pending unrestricted free agent, 6'2", 200 pounds, 334 career NHL games. And he is not an offensively driven defenseman, just 43 points in those 334 games. But he is tough and he is physical. 520 blocks and 802 hits in those 334 games. And he's somebody who, again, has experience playing with Morgan Rielly. I think that's something that probably was maybe one of the more attractive things about Lyubushkin than some of the other options that were out there. And for just the price of a third-round pick, I think it was well worth the deal for Brad Treliving to make that happen tonight.
Yeah, right. There's that familiarity there. We kind of said that acquiring Lyubushkin would be kind of a similar impact of getting a Luke Shen, although I think Luke Shen's a better defenseman.
Well, Luke Shen, not like when he was acquired, he was not expected to be that. He turned out to be a better acquisition.
Yes.
But when he was originally brought in, it was, all right, this guy could be your 6th, 7th defenseman. And I think you're probably looking at Lyubushkin somewhat similarly, maybe. I'm curious if you think this is it, though. I do wonder, do you think Treliving is done addressing the blue line now? Like, are you okay if Lyubushkin is the sole lone add to this back end? Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel. It's North America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NHL players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, futures, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Network.
For me, it all depends on how comfortable you are with Liljegren kind of playing the role he's been playing. Like, if you feel like you're confident enough to go with if Liljegren, what he has done over the last few games before he got hurt, is what he is going to be for the rest of the season, I'm a little more comfortable, because that's like an internal development, someone who got better when pressed into a bigger role. But personally, I just think that if there's another deal to be made to make an upgrade, if you can go out and get a better player, a better right-hand shot defenseman that kind of evens things out a little bit, you might as well try it. Especially because Lyubushkin, he's going to be a third pairing guy. Maybe he's the Morgan Rielly guy for now. But he's also a guy that if you get a better player, you don't have to play him each and every night as well, if you got better options.
Yeah, I think the phrasing you used there is correct, where you said for now, right? Like, he would be a good consolation prize, or I look at this as almost like an insurance policy, where you make this deal a week ahead of the deadline and all right, we've got Lyubushkin in our back pocket. If we can't make, another trade to beef up this back end, at least we did something and we got Lyubushkin, and we can live with a Lyubushkin Rielly pairing, and then Brody Liljegren and Benoit McCabe. We can live with that, assuming everyone's got good health heading into the playoffs. But, and I look at how this deal was done, where Lyubushkin, they got 75% of that contract retained. It's not like the Maple Leafs are in a crazy pinch here when it comes to cap space. They have some cap space to kind of do some wiggle room with the injuries that they have and everybody on LTIR. They've got a little bit of space here, and to make sure that they are, having as much as possible by having even more opened up by the retention of this deal, the double retention, paying an additional sixth round pick to get that extra $687,000 in cap space, leads me to believe that they will at least try to get something else done. Whether or not it happens, I don't know. Like I said, this maybe is just like that insurance policy in case they can't get a deal done. We spoke about Adam Larson yesterday as a potential option. Seattle's starting to kind of fall out of it a little bit. If he's available, yes, that is a clear upgrade over Lyubushkin that I think you could play up in the lineup with a Morgan Riley. But if you can't make that deal, I think the consolation or the insurance policy of Lyubushkin, you can be somewhat satisfied with it. And I think that's why that deal was made today.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I know some people are still going to be on the Chris Tanev. Why didn't they go and pay the price for Tanev? I still think that it's not just paying the price for Tanev. It's also the other team has to want to trade you, Chris Tanev.
Yeah, and that's becoming a little bit more evident that there could have been a directive from ownership that unless Toronto insanely overpaid for Tanev, it didn't appear like they wanted to deal with Brad Treliving for whatever reason. I guess it probably did not. They didn't leave on a good foot, I'm guessing, with ownership and Treliving. So whatever. If they don't want business done between these two groups, it's just not going to happen. So we don't even need to think about Tanev anymore. Like that deal's done and over with.
Yep.
Doesn't even matter. But is there another deal to be made? I guess is kind of the question that a lot of Leaf fans will be asking between now and a week from now at the NHL trade deadline. Will definitely be interesting. But again, I do like this move. I think the price is right. A third-round pick, a future third-round pick. They kept the Islanders pick for this year, so they still do have a draft pick, which if they decide to make another move, that is an attractive asset that they have. They still have their first-round pick also to make another move should they want to go that route. And they have somebody who, can play and is physical and checks a lot of the boxes that they want and that they need. When he was here in Toronto, his most frequent partner was Morgan Riley, and that's exactly what we've been looking for, was a partner for Riley. In the 287 minutes at 5-on-5 they played together, they had a 2.4 expected goals against, which is, decent. Like, it's not terrific, but it's not bad. It's decent. With a 53% expected goal differential. So they were winning their minutes quite often, and they didn't give up a whole ton of scoring chances when they were out there on the ice together, or high danger chances, sub 10 when they were out there on the ice together. So the numbers look decent when Morgan Riley and Ilya Lyubushkin were playing together. He was physical. I remember him laying a bunch of big time hits throughout his tenure as a Maple Leaf, and I'd imagine he'll do the exact same thing going forward this year for the Buds.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And you know what? That's the other thing that I know people are saying it's a rental. It's a rental. It could be. It might not be. We don't know yet. There's a lot of time they could decide. Lyubushkin maybe decides he wants to give it another try and stick around Toronto this time around.
I do remember Lyubushkin, similar to Luke Shen, when he was brought in here as a UFA the first time around from Arizona. There were people who, liked the way that he had played with Morgan Riley, that wanted him to re-sign in Toronto. Now he ended up getting a really, really fat ticket from the Buffalo Sabres. They gave him term at $2.75 million, and I don't think the Maple Leafs were willing to go there. I think they were in and around the $2-ish million range. So they let him walk, obviously. So we'll see what happens this summer. Are they going to be interested in bringing him back? Is he going to be interested in signing a deal that works for both sides? I don't know, but I like it. It's a good fit. It's a good pickup, and because of the salary retention and because they didn't give up a lot, they gave up a future third round pick. They still have their first. They still haven't, they're the Islanders' third this year. They're still cap and assets to go out and make an additional deal to maybe bring in a better defenseman on top of it and just continue to build out that depth on the right side.
That's it, right? You're never done. You can always have another defenseman. They always say you always need like 8 defensemen going into the playoffs.
890. Usually a team that goes to a cup final has at least 8 or 9 defensemen play at least one game, if not multiple. And the Leafs are going to need that. Like we would say, if Connor Timmins is playing games in the playoffs, it's probably not a great thing for this team. Or Max Lajoie, who, prior to this Lyubushkin trade was likely to be inserted into the lineup this weekend with Mark Giordano out. All right. Any final words or comments you want to make on this trade before we kind of dive into last night's win over the Oats?
Let's just hope he's ready for a very tough debut because it's not going to be easy. Rangers.
Yeah. The Rangers are a good team. Really good team. And they got a fighter out there, too, that Matt Rempe kid. I wonder if Lyubushkin tries to get the crowd sparked up once again, and maybe he drops the mitts with that Rempe kid potentially to get the juices flowing back in Scotiabank Arena. We'll see. Before we get ahead of ourselves, though, let's recap their win over the Coyotes. Their first victory on home ice in regulation since Matthew Knies was born. October 17th, 2002. We'll break down the victory and give you our 3 stars of the game. That's coming up next. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from receipt, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up until the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats, and the Game Time guarantee means that you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code Locked On for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. The Toronto Maple Leafs with their first regulation win over the Yotes since 2002. They were it was just an insane record. The Yotes were 10-0-2 against Toronto over that span, and it's funny that it coincides with the birth of Matthew Knies. And it was Matthew Knies who opened the scoring tonight en route to the victory. So maybe he's the savior, right? Lyubushkin, maybe not the savior for the Maple Leafs in the trade market, but could Matthew Knies be the savior for this team? He was treated like that last year, and a big goal to start things off tonight. But the story of this game, Dave, was Mitch Marner for multiple reasons. One, the play, the drop pass to allow Knies for the easy tap in, unbelievable. The guy's got, eyes in the back of his head, and it's becoming like a patented move at this point for Mitch Marner. And somehow Arizona didn't pick up on it. I think all of us knew when he picked that puck up at the blue line, did a little peek behind. There's no way he was shooting that. That was going to be a drop pass to the trailing winger all day long, and the Yotes somehow fell for it. Connor Ingram bit hard, and it was a wide open net for Matthew Knies. But I think even the bigger story than Mitch Marner's sweet play is the fact that Mitch Marner ended up playing defense for the second half of this game, Dave. Like,
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And he wasn't bad at it. Like, did he look like a defensive? Not always, but he did the things he needs to do. There's a reason why he's the pick. I think it's him and Kelly Yonkrook are kind of the two de facto. You got to go play on the back end when we don't have depth. We don't have when guys are injured. So it can't be. I don't think it can be overstated how big of I would say a sacrifice that is too, right? Because if it doesn't go well, guess who's wearing it? Mitch Marner's probably wearing it. The coaching staff's going to wear it. So that's like a good amount of trust between the coaching staff and Marner to be willing to do that. And for Marner to say, you know what, I'm going to do what the team needs me to do, right? I know some people are going to probably comment and say that's what he gets paid a lot of money for. He doesn't get paid money to play the blue line. He gets paid money to feed Austin Matthews.
To set up Matthew Knies for pretty goals and Austin Matthews for pretty goals.
Exactly, right? So, I just think that this game shows, why this team values Mitch Marner maybe a little more than others do.
Yeah.
Right. And so also we can't forget the other guy who got this team going too.
We'll get to that. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, and I just want to finish the conversation on Mitch Marner first. Not sure if you heard the post game. Actually, you did, because you brought it up previously, and we were talking about Lyubushkin. But the fact that Sheldon Keefe apparently had a conversation with the coaches, and there was a legitimate discussion about whether or not Mitch Marner should actually start the game on defense. They were in need of a right shot that bad, and really felt that they did not want to go through another game with 6 lefties, that they were considering starting Marner as a right shot defenseman in this game. Ultimately, they did not. They went with the 6 lefty routes. But then when the injury to Giordano happened, that left them with just 5 blue liners. And that's when I guess, Kiefer looked down the bench and gave a little head nod, said, all right, it's time for Mitch to help out on the blue line. You got him on the back end, right? Told Dean and told Van Ryn, you can use him however you need. And obviously they used him quite a bit back there. I just thought that it was really interesting how desperate Keefe was to get a right shot back there, which is, goes back to what we were talking about yesterday, and why I think like this Lyubushkin trade was, happening today is not just happenstance. Like they needed another right shot demon. They needed someone in that lineup so that they didn't have to take Marner away from his line mates for another game, obviously, and against a more superior team like the New York Rangers. So it makes a lot of sense that trade happens today. But still, got to tip your cap to Mitch Marner for being a good sport about it at the very least, and playing admirably. Wasn't the greatest. Not saying that this is the second coming of Cale Makar or anything like that. But you know what? Still an admirable performance by Mitchy Marner on the back end. All right. Was it Joe Woll you wanted to give some love to? Is that who you wanted to give some love to in this game? Yeah, he returned for the first time in a couple of months. He looked good, man. You know what? I forgot how calm I felt while watching Joseph Woll in net. Like, I don't know if you had that feeling, but like his calmness calms me. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, I was watching a game with a friend, and he basically said like he looks like he kind of said he looks robotish, like he looks like a robot in the net, right? Like everything comes natural to him. He doesn't. And look, and this is not a knock on Samsonov, because there's goaltenders who legitimately play a certain style where they're kind of moving around. There's a little more franticness because they're reacting in different ways. And some goaltenders, they just know if they're in the right position, they're going to make the save.
Yeah.
And that's Joseph Woll for me. You don't see him make a bad read on where he needs to be on the ice, right? Even the second goal, like he was in a good position to make the save. It just got tipped on him.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
the first one, you gave up a breakaway to Alex Kerfoot. He makes a really nice move and flips it up. Okay, that's a breakaway. Like that's gonna happen. I blame the D and I blame the power play for again leaving your goalie high and dry like that. And then like you said, the second one a deflection goal. So he was pretty solid considering he hadn't played. He had the one start in the Marlies last week, but outside of that, hadn't played since December, and it didn't look like he missed a beat. It was pretty solid right from puck drop tonight.
Yeah, and maybe this opens up the conversation we were kind of having beforehand about the playoffs and stuff. Like this to me is an open audition for both Samsonov and Woll to make their case to start game one. I don't think at this point, I don't think any of them have. Now, I'm not saying none of them have earned the right to start. I think both have the opportunity to show that they are more deserving for it.
Do you think one has a slight edge over the other? Like, is there a 51-49 lean somewhere right now?
I always, they usually say tie goes to the veteran. Well, I'm in the opposite direction. I'm going with the guy who I think who has a higher ceiling.
Interesting. I don't know where I'm at on this, man. I don't know where I'm at. I am 51-49, and I flip-flop by the day. I think I would give it to Samsonov for game one, but it'd be a short leash. The only reason why I give it to Sammy, I think right now, is just because I saw him win around last year. Like he played and won playoff games and really outdueled Vasilevsky in the playoffs last year. So that would be the only reason why I would go with him right now. Not to say that over the next couple of months, over the next couple of games, weeks, I can't have my mind changed. But would like to see Joseph Woll have a few more starts like this, before disparaging what we've seen from Samsonov over the course of the last month since he's been back and playing at a pretty high level, I would say, all things considered. What else stood out to you from tonight's game, Dave?
Well, apparently, don't go get all amped up and challenge rivalries to a fight.
Yeah, probably
that was not a wise decision by O'Brien there. But the best part about that has to be that lady in the crowd putting her hands, not even like properly covering her eyes, and like you're at a hockey game. If somebody didn't tell you a fight is possible, especially with Ryan Reaves on the team, maybe like you shouldn't be surprised. That was a little. It was funny, but it's also like, come on.
It's just being over dramatic. That's what that is. That's just being.
They want to be a meme. They want to be a meme that bad.
Well, and they probably will be. They got on TV because of it. They did get on national television. But yeah, I could care less about that type of stuff, to be honest with you. But yeah, no, that was a good tilt, a nice little tilt from Reaves. And what I actually did like was, and I think it was noted by Elliot on the broadcast when they showed the reaction of the bench afterwards. Like you could tell that got the guys fired up, right? Like that got the juices flowing from the team, and they went out and what was the score of the game at the point where they had fought? It was, I don't think it was 3-0 yet at that point. I think it was still kind of within reach for
It was
Arizona.
1-0. 1-0.
Yeah. So then they end up getting a couple of goals. Bertuzzi and Matthews score. Not too long afterwards in the start of the second period there, because it was at the end of the first when they fought, right?
Yeah.
So
the Coyotes were being very chippy at that point in the game too. Like to me, what I thought was important, like Ryan Reaves basically, he was saying, we're answering back on your physicality because he did lay a hit before it happened.
Settle down, boys.
Yeah,
Simmer.
like if you guys think you're just gonna take liberties on my guys, this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and look, that's what he was brought in here to do. Exactly. I mean, hey, I gave that guy so much crap earlier in the year, and I'm eating crow on it right now. Again, just like the goalie debate, there's still a couple months until playoff time. I can definitely change my mind.
Yep.
But the last 2 weeks, Ryan Reaves has been an NHL player. Okay, he's played well, he's been effective, and he's been a big part of of this team, and he's played well when he's been out on the ice. They've won, it's like 75% of their shifts, of their minutes. They spent a lot of time in the offensive end. They've played really, really well, and Reaves is in that conversation, and he might also get the call come game one of the playoffs, which I would not have said about 6 weeks ago. So it just goes to show the ups and downs of a season. And it's funny when we have like a daily podcast, we react to things on a daily basis, but it's funny to kind of look at things in pockets and segments and how different your mind gets changed within like a month or a few weeks stretch, like we've seen here with Ryan Reaves.
Yeah, it's been an important development. I think the fourth line, it's not just because Ryan Reaves is fighting, but the fourth line's actually playing as a unit. They're doing what you need a fourth line to do. There's an identity there.
Yeah, dude, the fourth line is hemming teams in the offensive end. Like,
yeah,
that's outstanding, right? Like they get in there for a good 30-40 second shift, cycle the puck a couple of times. They're taking it to the net, getting some shots on goal, and then they're applying enough pressure, cycling it around where then, okay, send the Matthews line out. And then that's another wave of pressure. And then another wave of pressure. Then Nylander comes out, who had another 3 points in tonight's game. Now a 9-game point streak for William Nylander, by the way, 15 points over the course of those 9 games. He was spectacular as well. Hey man, the team's playing pretty well. I mean, tonight was an interesting game. Like they won. It wasn't pretty. Like this definitely was not their best game, and it seems like we're talking up the team a whole lot as if they had crushed the Coyotes. They didn't. It was 4-2.
They were on their heels.
Empty netter, like 4-2 with an empty netter, and they were hanging on for dear life in the last 10 minutes of that game. Like the third period, the Yotes were all over Toronto, and they escaped it, which you like to see, obviously. But with the defensive situation, the injury to Giordano, I don't know. It was a weird game, I guess. We called it. So it was a trap game of all trap games, and luckily they walked away with 2 points. Like you still got to be pretty happy with that when you think about the fact that they probably weren't the better team tonight.
Yeah, like the Coyotes did enough, I think, effort-wise to try to win that game. And the Leafs had good goaltending. They had the lead. I just didn't like that. They looked out of it. Like that last 10 minutes, they looked like they couldn't skate. They couldn't do nothing right. And that's a little concerning, but I also think that blue line has just been through so much. Like they went with 5 defensemen for a second. I think it's almost second game where I've seen them go with 5 defensemen, and they're all getting used so much, right? So there's a little bit of that as well going into like how the team played, I think. But yeah, like if the Leafs think that the way they played is going to be good enough going forward, they need to get back to that identity when they're on that win streak. And to me, the way they played at home has me concerned because they play totally different at home than they do on the road.
Yeah, and I can't quite pinpoint why that is because it was the opposite last year. They had a terrific home record last year, and they were good on the road. But this year, they're elite on the road and like a 500 hockey team when they're on home ice. It is kind of baffling when you look at it, and not too sure why that is, but certainly it's something that they're going to want to change and figure out come playoff time. You can't lose all your home games like that. That's your advantage. Luckily, it looks like the Leafs won't have home ice, and they'll play more games on the road, I suppose. If things stay the way they are, they're currently slated to play, I think, the Bruins in the first round.
Yeah, I think Florida's got the better points percentage.
Yeah, and the Bruins obviously would have home ice in that one. All right. Anything else that you want to point out from tonight's game?
Again, we talked about Matthew Knies a little bit, but I thought he was really good, especially early on. That play he made on the Matthews goal. Like I know he tried to feed Willie there, was a little late on that, but if he doesn't get that turnover, that goal doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. He's someone who's gaining confidence by the day for sure. Looks like he's caught a bit of a second win after the All-Star game too, which is definitely what you need. And Tyler Bertuzzi with another goal. It's 7 goals in 7 games. It took him 51 games to get 7 goals earlier this season, and now he's got 7 and hit the 7 games since. It's amazing what happens when you get a little bit of puck luck your way. I mean, tonight's goal was just well, it's 2 things. One, he's going to the net, and that's why he's scoring. Look at all these goals; they're in the net, in and around the net. That said, he was doing the same thing prior when he was snake bitten. He was still in and around the net all the time. Just instead of it deflecting off of his stick and into the back of the net like it did tonight, it was deflecting off of his stick and wide of the net or off a post or a crossbar, or somehow the goaltender would throw a blocker on it. He's getting good puck luck right now, and it's obviously really good to see. This is the Tyler Bertuzzi that the Maple Leafs thought that they were getting when they signed him this past summer. I was actually having a conversation with somebody about it today. When talking about whether or not the Maple Leafs, if they're going to make any additions up front, or if they were just going to focus on the blue line, and I thought to myself, their addition is Tyler Bertuzzi. Like the real Tyler Bertuzzi is their addition. The first 50 games, that was not the Tyler Bertuzzi that they were expecting. Right now, this is the Bertuzzi that they paid, that they thought they were going to get. And for him to get here right around the trade deadline and for the final stretch run and into the playoffs, it's almost as if he's the deadline addition. Yarncroc is someone who's missed, a bunch of time. His addition back into the lineup in the next week or two is almost going to feel like a trade deadline addition up front. So almost, again, makes you really think that if there is another move to be done, it's probably going to be to continue to bolster that back end, that blue line, and now try and find another upgrade on Ilya Lyubushkin. All right, there's a game tomorrow night, obviously. Leafs hosting the New York Rangers, an original 6 matchup. What are the odds that we see a Matt Rempe, Ryan Reaves tussle tomorrow night, Dave?
We'll see. I don't know. That eye has not looked very good on Matt Rempe.
Yeah, true. Very, very true. That was like the talk of the week. It was like, just talk about this guy and his fighting and whether or not he was going to fight at his MSG debut or not. And ultimately he didn't because of that eye. We'll see what he does against Ryan Reaves. All right, buddy. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms to receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. And follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. If you enjoyed today's show, go ahead, smash that like button, leave a comment down below your thoughts on the Ilya Lyubushkin trade for the Toronto Maple Leafs. All right. We will be back with another episode for you guys on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the games. Go Leafs, go. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.